This is a segment with Tad Devine, and he is one of the main guys running the Sanders campaign, and he's going to answer all of the questions. And obviously, you know, he's a Sanders guy, so he's going to do his own spin. But his spin sounds a lot more possible than the spin that the other people are using against Sanders. And admittedly, I am a Sanders guy, so yeah, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
He's a senior advisor in the Sanders campaign and joins me now. Tad, welcome to New York. Here it is.
Thank you.
New York Daily News. The media market here is rough, as Hillary Clinton herself learned some time ago. But how do you respond to, you know, the questions the Sandy Hook families at this hour holding a conference call with reporters, the sister of one of the victims? There were tweets last night from the daughter of the principal of the school. This is a long-held view of Bernie Sanders on that immunity issue. He was consistent to it last night, rather in his Daily News interview. But how do you handle this? Yeah. Facing not only the New York media market, but Connecticut votes the week after.
Yeah. Well, what I would say to them is they should take a look at Bernie Sanders' record on the issue of gun violence. He lost his first election for Congress because he stood up and said in Vermont, a rural state that has no gun control, that he would support a ban on assault weapons. He has a D- lifetime rating from the NRA on the issue of manufacturer liability. He recently signed on as a co-sponsor to legislation which would deal with that issue in the current Congress. So I would say to them, they should take a look at his record. And I would also say that on the gun issue, look back at 2008 when Hillary Clinton said when she was running for president that what works in New York City doesn't necessarily work in Montana. Her position on this issue has evolved since then. So I would just ask them to take a hard look at someone who's represented a rural state and on issue after issue when it comes to gun violence has been correct. And sometimes he is, in the past, has voted for that legislation, and currently he feels in light of circumstances that he would support it and indeed has signed on to the legislation currently in Congress.
And Tad, she's just also gone after him. She's at the labor meeting in Philadelphia today. He's going to be there tomorrow. He's in Philadelphia tonight. So Pennsylvania, April 26th, you know the stakes there. But she's just going after him again on some of the things he said to the Daily News about the banking industry, not seeming to know how he would break up the banks. Let me play that for you.
Sure.
Sanders and I have some real differences about how we would go about achieving our goals as president. And like a lot of people, I am concerned that some of his ideas just won't work because the numbers don't add up. Others won't even pass Congress, or they rely on Republican governors suddenly having a conversion experience and becoming progressives. Well, in a number of important areas, he doesn't have a plan at all. Now, sometimes I'm accused of spending too much time.
So there she goes. She goes after him on not being pragmatic, not being practical, not being able to get his stuff past Congress. She's really trying to undermine his credibility as you guys face off in New York.
Well, you know, when Hillary Clinton was a member of the United States Senate, in 8 years, she didn't pass a single amendment to a single piece of legislation by roll call vote. In 12 years, Bernie Sanders passed more amendments to legislation than any member of Congress, Democrat or Republican, at a time when the Republicans controlled Congress. So if she wants to have a debate about effectiveness, we welcome that debate. Bernie Sanders has been enormously effective in his political career, going back to the time he was mayor of Burlington, as a member of the House in the last session of Congress. He helped lead into law a fundamental reform of the Veterans Administration, which supplied more resources for veterans health care than any bill in a generation. So if she wants to argue that, we welcome the argument.
What is the response to her criticism and other criticism of what he said to the Daily News about how he would break up the banks, but not knowing who would have the authority, how a president would actually accomplish that, what the impact would be on New York if you were to suddenly not have a J.P. Morgan Chase?
Yeah. Well, the response is, and I think we're seeing a lot of it today with economists like Bob Reich, who has spoken out publicly, and a number of others, that what Bernie said in that interview is absolutely correct. The best way to break up the big banks would be through legislation. The legislation that is currently before Congress calls on a cap on the size of the big banks, somewhere between 2 and 3% of GDP. The other means of breaking them up would be through the authority of the Secretary of the Treasury, working in council with others, okay? And as to the issue of the Federal Reserve Authority, where where he said he wasn't sure, there's a reason he would say he wasn't sure, because most economists are not sure the extent of the authority of the Federal Reserve when it comes to breaking up the big banks. So everything that Bernie said in that interview is absolutely correct. But listen, I get it. I understand what it's going to be like in New York, and I understand that tabloids are going to take you on, and people are going to take what you say and try to twist it and distort it. What Bernie is going to do is talk about his message. There's a rigged economy in America, sending all new wealth to the top. It's held in place by a corrupt system of campaign finance. We believe that will resonate in New York the way it resonated in Wisconsin.
And Ted, with the delegate math, how do you fight the delegate math?
Well, Andrea, I believe, and I know I see all these numbers and projections. I've been doing delegates for a long time, and I spent the whole decade of the 80s counting delegates for 3 candidates, nominees of our party for president. And the way we do it is just one state at a time. We're going to Wyoming this weekend. We've got New York after that. We've got a bunch of states a week after that. There's enough delegates right now, I believe, if we succeed all the way through California and the District of Columbia, to win more pledged delegates than Hillary Clinton has. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but we can do it. And I think we can do it because Bernie has a much better message, and he's a much stronger messenger for that message. I think it will resonate in places like California. I think we can beat her in New Jersey. I think we're going to take her out in New York, and I understand she's way ahead and is formidable in her home state, but we believe we can do well there. So that's how we do it. We do it one state at a time, one step at a time, and I think if we get ahead and we win most of the states, even the superdelegates, then we'll have to admit that Bernie Sanders will be a stronger candidate to be the nominee of our party.
Thanks so much, Tad Devine. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Andrew.
And coming up, Fight Club. After a blow in Wisconsin, can the Republican frontrunner squash the growing turmoil in his own campaign? Trump spokesperson